Hello, I'm Dave Feinlieb, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands and retailers build retail media and product detail page content faster than ever before at ItsRapid.ai. My guests on today's show are Andrew Groom and Jack Slattery from the Wine Group. Andrew Groom is currently the Senior Director of Digital Marketing and Ecommerce for the Wine Group, the second largest wine supplier in the U.S. The Wine Group is a category leader in wine and wine-based cocktails, producing iconic brands like Franzia and Cupcake. Andrew leads all things digital and e-commerce for the portfolio of brands, including the build-out of a full 3-tier e-commerce strategy and plan. Prior to joining the Wine Group, Andrew managed the marketing strategy and planning process for E&J Gallo Winery. In this role, Andrew paved the way for a new marketing strategy development process that led 60-plus marketers to connect with consumers and grow their brands, including La Marca Prosecco, New Amsterdam Vodka, High Noon Sun Sips, and many others. Jack has a distinguished background in the adult beverage industry with a career that began at a Swedish beer brand owned by Carlsberg. Then spending almost a decade at Anheuser-Busch, he achieved notable success, driving growth in market share and sales on the Walmart e-commerce account. His contributions extended to developing organizational-wide training, crafting e-commerce strategies for emerging channels, and spearheading a digital shelf transformation. Jack's current mission as Director of E-commerce at the Wine Group is to build TWG's e-commerce team and cement TWG as a preferred omnichannel supplier. Jack's experience in digital marketing, D2C, e-com sales, and category insights has established him as both a leader and a thought leader in beverage alcohol, e-commerce, and digital marketing. Please enjoy my conversation with Andrew Groom and Jack Slattery. Andrew and Jack, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be here.
Take us back, if you would. How'd you get started in the space?
I'll start kind of with my background, which is really focused on digital marketing. I think when I sort of started in this space, it was really agency side. So working in PR firms back when everybody was trying to figure out what digital was. So spent a lot of time there working across the different industries, really just getting exposed to a lot of different things. Before I then took on a role with a major wine supplier, E&J Gallo Winery out in California. And that was about 10 years ago now. And really just became immersed in the whole category of wine. So everything from understanding the nuances of the 3-tier system to how do we navigate all the laws and legalities around this growing space. So it evolved quickly from digital and social into paid media and ultimately e-commerce and all the functions that go along with it. But pretty steadily, always about what's new in this space. And I imagine Jack probably felt similarly. So.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having us, David. Really appreciate it. So I got my start at an international craft brewery over in Sweden. So sort of started in various general marketing roles and then parlayed that into a role with one of Anheuser-Busch's craft breweries, Blue Point. That eventually evolved into a D2C direct-to-consumer role. And that obviously exploded around COVID. I then jumped over to the corporate side at Anheuser-Busch, where I managed the digital shelf and then some e-commerce category management and insights work. And then I spent some time doing e-commerce sales on the Walmart account before joining Andrew at the Wine Group a little over a year ago, where I'm the director of e-commerce here.
Such great backgrounds and a wealth of knowledge, both about e-com and the space. Let me ask you first about the wine market and kind of the stage and the state of e-commerce. Where are we in the life cycle and the evolution of the space?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this a lot lately where I've been at the wine group for about 2 years now, and honestly, I feel like we're still at the beginnings of a lot of ecom for wine. I think when the pandemic hit in 2020, obviously direct to consumer shipping took a huge jump, and I think wine was poised really well just due to the legalities around wine and the friendliness around shipping directly to consumers. That was such a big part of it. And so I feel like that was such a huge spike in 2020. And then I think what's been fascinating to see is that since that time, like the entire e-retail landscape, all of the traditional retailers and brick and mortar, as they become more sophisticated and better understanding of the space, that has really become the lion's share of e-commerce in our category. So I think it surprises a lot of people because with wine, it's so often assumed that it's all about wine clubs and shipping directly. But really, it's like 80% of the business in e-commerce is happening through non-DTC channels, whether it's third-party marketplace or through directly to individual retailers through click and collect and all those sorts of things. So I think that's an important distinction here, is that we really look at it as those two sides of the coin. There's sort of DTC and then the e-retail space, as we call it so much, which is so much of what I think Jack and the team were really focused on addressing every day. But it's been an interesting evolving sort of trend for us in particular with wine, even outside the rest of AppBev.
Yeah, I'll just add, if you don't mind. I think, as Andrew was saying, it was D2C's turn and now it's e-retail's turn. And currently, I mean, e-retail is growing nearly double digits. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think as laws change, as focus has changed, as people's shopping behavior has changed, it's, e-retail's time to shine.
What kind of, or how do you think about content and supporting the space and kind of doing all that needs to be done to get the right information in front of the shopper in this rapidly growing space?
Yeah. So I think in a way we're really lucky. As Andrew was saying, it was D2C's moment and now it's e-retail's moment, and for wine in particular. And I think that we've been lucky to, in this case, maybe have some other more traditional and mature CPGs that have led the way and made mistakes that we don't have to, because we're able to learn from them and emulate their best practices, but make them unique and specific to wine. So by having been sort of, not necessarily leading in e-commerce and e-retail as a category because of that D2C focus, we've now had the opportunity to really sort of come in with a strong foundation and be in a really good place to bring our entire organizations along in that journey and not sort of stumbling over our own feet. In terms of content creation and how we get it places, we rely on a lot of really great partners, everything from Salsify for syndication, our distributor and wholesaler partners for content syndication and distribution, to tools like ItsRapid, where we're able to build content at scale in a really effective way and then get that out. So there is this web, right, that we rely on, and we are sort of managing all those pieces at once.
I love it. Well, you said two of my favorite vendors right there, Salsify and ItsRapid. So I'm excited to talk about some of the work we're doing together. First, let me ask you about e-commerce strategy in general. What is the overall strategy when you think about building and scaling the e-com business?
Yeah. I mean, I'll speak to it, but I think Jack, I'd love for you to jump in on this as well. But I think like for us, it really has been about addressing that shift that I talked about earlier, which is really a space where we go from a true direct to consumer model that is very like easy to manage and nimble and, really full ownership of the process as a supplier, to again working within what is the traditional 3-tier system of AppBev, where we're working with our wholesalers and distributor teams as well as directly with retailers to try to understand all of the needs that they have and meet those needs as best as possible. So it's fascinating in the sense that it is still very much about content in both capacities. I think content is key for a lot of this, and so we're really focused on making sure we're hitting all the standards that are needed there, but also that we're trying to take advantage of like the constantly changing landscape. So as laws shift and move state by state, really, it allows us some flexibility to, dabble in retail media and look at the marketplaces we've talked about too, really to try to just understand and to drive those conversions in those places. But I'd say the main focus here is definitely around content, and then ultimately how do we address the needs of those retailer teams, which is funny when I say it out loud, because it's like that's the way it's always been for our industry. It's just in a new sort of avenue. But yeah, Jack, would love for you to speak to it a little further as well.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with it's the same stuff. It's just in a different medium, right? A different channel now. Personally, I think we're at a stage now in this digital evolution and in wine and alcohol as a whole, where we can't be thinking about an e-commerce strategy in a silo and say, okay, we've got content, we've got copy, we've got brand pages, there's our e-commerce strategy. That's not enough anymore. I think we need to think of e-commerce and an e-commerce campaign or activation as a part of a total strategy, as a part of a omni-channel brand strategy, trade strategy. It is a component. It's not its own strategy. And it's up to us to insert ourselves in those conversations, continue to preach the importance of e-commerce, and make sure that, to Andrew's point around content, there's creative cohesion, that messaging remains the same throughout the whole program and strategy, but also specific to the medium, the channel that it's being delivered in and being shopped on and by. So that's really, I think, how over the last couple of years we've shifted from e-com strategies to really trying to be a part of the full strategy from the jump.
Now, I have, as you know, a few questions to ask you about content and the great work we're doing together. Will you take a moment before I do that and just tell us about the wine group and kind of what's the business and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the wine group, we are the second largest wine supplier in the world. And I think it's always fascinating when you look at the wine category, and Gallo is obviously a behemoth in our space, but we are really focused on trying to grow our brands in a real meaningful way that it historically has always done well for us. So this company is built on the backs of Franzia, which is, as we all know, the 5-liter bag in a box wine brand, which is fantastic, and it continues to do incredibly well. But with the addition of Cupcake over the years, and now the portfolio continue to diversify, we're really focused on trying to address the total wine category and really meet the needs of the consumer. Some exciting innovation as well on the horizon for us as we think about the constant change when it comes to ready to drink and these other sorts of pieces really that are outside of what you'd say is traditional usage of wine. So very excited to do that as well. But and then the other piece of our business that's really fascinating, I think we'll talk about a little today, is private label wines. So we actually are I would say we are the largest private label supplier, definitely in the US, if not the world. And so fascinating dynamic there as we work with all of our partners to kind of to grow those corporate brands as well. And as we all know, within CPG, the private label business is just booming. So that's kind of the wine group in a nutshell. We're really focused on trying to just meet the needs as the wine category shifts and changes like it has.
Well, thanks for the background. It's such a pleasure to be working with you guys. Jack, we had the privilege of meeting at a grocery shop a while back, and that has led to some really amazing work that we're super excited to chat with you about. Would love it if you'd kind of frame it up for us. What were some of the challenges that you were facing when it came to Omni and everything you wanted to be doing?
Yeah, I think Andrew touched on some of it, right? Which was around establishing growth through our brands and making sure that the brands are growing. And then how do you do that in the digital space? That hasn't traditionally been the focus. And, the brand, 90% of their business is in store. So that's where their focus and priority is. And it's up to Andrew and me to sort of be the experts in the field there and really guide them and show them those best practices for e-commerce execution. And so, Andrew spoke about a few of our brands. We've got a ton more. I think it's something like 200 SKUs. And so to deliver content at scale with that amount of complexity in the portfolio is a challenge, especially Andrew mentioned corporate brands, right, that don't necessarily get the same investment as a Cupcake or a Franzia. And so we've got to be really efficient with cost, with time, with people, and making sure that we're getting the retailers the content that they're requesting and requiring for digital eligibility, right, in a quick and complete way that's also effective and, connects with the shopper in that moment when they're shopping online or building their cart over the course of a week. And so that's a challenge that ItsRapid has really helped us start to break down. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth still, and beyond the digital shelf as well. Oh, that's the name of the podcast, right? I swear I didn't mean to do that. But
you hit it. It's amazing.
You can use that as a tagline. But seriously, I mean, we've talked about it together, right? Around POS, in-store activations.
Yeah.
Packaging is an opportunity eventually. Like, there is a lot of stuff that this content can help support outside of that e-retail, that retailer.com's website.
Yeah. And when you think about partners and vendors that you could be working with, how do you go about the selection process when you choose who you're going to work with?
Yeah, I think that there's really two big things that are super important, which is like the first is really just the idea of enablement. Are we enabling the entire organization top to bottom to really succeed in this space? So that usually means like things need to be pretty user friendly, that we're working across a wide swath of acumen. And so we look for partners that can really help and support that, as opposed to sort of requiring a massive learning curve. I think we've got folks like on our team here that are very savvy and understand how to navigate this. But obviously it falls on deaf ears when you're working with folks that maybe aren't doing this every day. So it's really important that we have partners that can speak, and educate plainly, and really to help everyone across the company to succeed. And the other piece is really scale. I mean, we're a nimble team, and I think we always have been, and that's something we take pride in, but that also requires partners that can allow for scale for us. And so I think whether it's content or anything else, really, we want to understand that we can address things at a large scale with our team as it stands. So I think those are two really big factors that come into play here, and I think are really important as we navigate this.
Yeah, if I could add on one or two things, I think a lot of what Andrew is talking about is making sure that our team isn't biting off more than we can chew with 10 different partners to execute, each one different part of the digital shelf or of this process of syndication. And so finding partners, right? And there's a lot of great partners out there that we've tested with, that, we've executed pilots with, tested and learned. But to be able to do so much of that in one place and really have ItsRapid be a one-stop shop, I think is really important, as Andrew was saying, for our small team, because the more partners and tech that you bring in, it's just that much more setup time to manage and pull all these different assets, reports, whatever it might be. And so to be able to sort of centralize that has been, I think, really important. And then also enabled us, to Andrew's point, again, around the rest of the organization to share it more widely. You don't need to train all the brand teams, brand managers on 10 different tools. You need to train them on one that can do 7 different things, if not more, right? And so that, I think, has really allowed us to, we met, little over a year ago, David, and really started working together this year. And we've already scaled the tool across our brand teams. We've got, a couple power users in there. And I think having it be such a concentrated resource or set of resources has been really helpful in allowing us to get started and then take it to the next level.
Well, thanks for that. It's been a pleasure getting things going with you guys and scaling it up. You touched on it earlier. Tell us, if you would, about maybe some of the use cases. We're, as you said, working on a few different areas, but would love to share with the listeners maybe some examples of some of that work.
Yeah, I think I touched on one, and then Jack would love for you to jump in as well. But one of the pieces that's really interesting for us is, again, that private label business. I think like when we look at that, what we're essentially doing is building brands from scratch with very little little push, other than just that these retailers have needs. We need to meet those needs and ultimately have a brand that they then expect to succeed and operate as any other national brand would. And I think that is a can be a tall task a lot of times. Thankfully, these retailers are incredibly supportive, and so we have all the needs that we can. All the needs are met in terms of enabling our digital, placement and on shelf and all those sorts of things. But they do require a lot when it comes to content and really being able to meet all those content needs. And so that I think is a really good case for us in the sense that we've got these brands that are so fresh and new that we're able to sort of build and iterate off of those right from the jump. And I think that has been a huge value for us. And Jack, I'm sure you've seen some of that as well.
Yeah, I'll talk first sort of at a portfolio level, which is one, the use cases include everything on the digital shelf, PDP content, enhanced mobile heroes, below the fold content that we can, also repurpose for brand pages, category pages, shoppable moments. Copy as well is one that you guys have added recently that we've tapped into, which has been a huge help. And again, goes back to my point earlier around consolidating tools. So that has been really helpful for the digital shelf. I think another thing that's sort of more project based is there's two. So there's also the various digital retail media and digital marketing assets that we need to create and version out. And you guys allow us to upload templates, upload specs, have all of that ready, click a button, and boom, you've got 10 different versions of the same asset. That is everything you need to execute this e-commerce portion of the full strategy. So that's one thing. And then the last that Andrew and I were talking about is really around innovation, right? Some of these brands that are coming out next year, maybe they don't have printed packages yet. Maybe the brand doesn't have photography yet. But guess what? The retailer needs the item uploaded 6 weeks ahead of STR. And so we still need, minimum viable content, if not better than that, to submit the item, to get it set up, to make sure that it's shoppable from the moment that first scan happens in store. And you guys really enable us to develop innovation content before we even have a physical product to leverage in photography, or the brand team hasn't maybe developed their full brand playbook. And so we need to develop copy, and then we work closely with the brand team to vet all of that. And so it's a really useful tool in getting innovation live on the digital shelf.
I love it. So many great use cases, more to come. Talk to us about adoption. You've been amazing in how you've rolled this out, gained adoption across the org. Tell us a little about some of the insights and what's worked well there.
I mean, I think that such an important part of this is training and really helping people understand how to use these tools. So I think it's been great to do that in partnership with your team, Dave, in terms of how, being flexible on timing and allowing the folks time to really get in and get their hands into the different components and understand how to navigate these pieces. And so that has been instrumental. In addition to that, really the use and the identification of power users, and I think we're so lucky to have some of that, and having people internally that can really understand, like, yeah, this is how you need to navigate this. I might know they have a little deeper knowledge, but I have to say, it's just from my perspective, it's been amazing to watch, because I think with every time we have it's either new training or even just some of the conversation back and forth in the online chatter, and seeing the brand teams and the marketing teams really jump in and see the value right away. I think that has been such a big part of it. They adopt quickly because they see the value. It's very direct. And so I think that's been huge for this piece as well. But absolutely, those are some of the key components. I think it's like, it really is about training, enablement, and having those internal resources of folks to say they're going to be the main point of contact and the main user here, just to help people understand it a little bit better.
So great. And you've got power users like Juke, a shout out to her and the whole team, the brand teams. You've also done an incredible job educating the organization, the users across the org, but as well as the leadership team. Will you share with us some of the insights and learnings that you share up and down the org?
Yeah, for me at least, I know that it's a lot to do with scale and efficiency. I think, as much as it is about the making sure that our brands are consistent and that we're maintaining the consistency of the messaging, as you go up in leadership and really try to address to them what are the different needs of the company, they really see a ton of value in how we can be so nimble and do it at what is a much more efficient pace. So I think that is like such a big piece for me when whether I'm discussing this with my CMO or other people, like really just seeing that value and scale and efficiency. I think there's a lot of that. While at the same time on the brand marketing side, we have folks that build things that are very important to them, and I don't disagree. Right, these are brand essences and brand foundational elements that are so key to these individual brands, and as they come to life, we want to ensure that it's consistent, and we want to make sure that we don't lose any of that essence and really the heart of each of these brands. And so knowing that and having that confidence in this, I think it's usually really what is a big point of contention for these folks that I think is well addressed with the ItsRapid team. And I think it always has been. But Jack, I'm curious what you're seeing on your end as well.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back, I think, to establishing those power users and making sure, it is super important to get senior leadership on board. I think there's a lot of excitement within our organization around AI and what is possible with that, especially, we've said our team is small and mighty, but so are the brand teams, right? And so their leadership wants to tap into a tool like this that frees up their time as well. But back to like that power user piece, I think that's really important because you need an evangelist inside the user organization to then get their peers, who are actually the people who are going to be in the tool on a daily or weekly basis, to really promote and bring them along that journey. And I think that too often, SaaS tools are just like set it and forget it. And that leads to us not being great users. And that's not good for us or for the software company and provider either, right? And so like good tech alone isn't good enough. And you need partners who are going to ensure that you're using the tool to its best and fullest capabilities so that it works for us and that works for you. You shouted out Juke. I want to shout out Tony on your team. He's been an incredible leader in bringing our whole team along with ItsRapid and making sure that they feel comfortable in the tool to get the most out of it.
Well, thank you for the collaboration across the teams. It's been amazing. More to come. Tell us, if you would, on a couple of the biggest wins you've had, and then how you see this capability being used going forward.
Well, I touched on some of it already, which was, everything on the digital shelf, right? We've been able to, in the first couple months, set up all of these templates for various retailer requirements, digital specs, and then start to execute that across all of our major brands. Franzia Cupcake, we've built below the fold content. We have really been able to, I think, hit the ground running, which to me is the biggest win, right? This tool became effective for us right off the bat, which is massive. I think innovation is another one, right? We've been able to partner with our internal systems, partner with Salsify to connect a lot of dots to set up products and get content moving for new innovation items much more rapidly, which has always been, in my experience, a challenge, right? I can't tell you how many times I was setting up a new item online and was 2 weeks after STR because the brand teams weren't delivering content. And that is something that we can offset with ItsRapid and get ahead of, which is so critical to the launch of that brand, of that SKU, to be able to find it online, shop it, learn about it, look at the content, compare it, check it out while you're in store online. And it's just that there's so many benefits to having that product launched on time, and ItsRapid helps us with that. So those are some of our biggest wins.
I will say too, I think to that point, right? And even in the macro sense, when I started at TWG about 2 years ago, we really were starting from scratch in a lot of ways. And we were faced with, some of our major retail partners giving us content scores that were well below C and D, and so a huge part of that has been our partnership with our distributor partners at Southern Glaziers and other places like that. But just as much, being able to address those needs has really just been happening through this partnership in such a way that it wasn't before. And I think that's what's so important. We work with our partners at Southern, who I mentioned, and they really help us identify the problems and say, hey, here's possible solutions. But being able to say, great, we've got what we need to actually address that right away is like so key and true. I mean, and that is the truth. I would say it was almost like we were looking at the line graph of the scores and going from that C and D to B and A almost, within a month, just by being able to fill in these gaps and really meet all those needs is so huge for us. And it's really just helped us go from what problems are we fixing with the retailer teams to now what can we work on together for the future, which is just such a big difference.
I think also ItsRapid has like its finger on the pulse with retailers, with syndication partners. And so, Andrew, those things change all the time, right? Those retailer requirements, their scorecards, and to be able to stay on top of it and make sure that we're filling in the gaps that they're identifying, what's important to their shopper, being able to stay on top of it and continuing to sort of evolve our templates and requirements in ItsRapid to meet theirs is really important as well.
Amazing. So much more I'd love to cover with you both. You have so many great areas we've touched on today. I, of course, have to ask you about AI. We've done a lot actually with what I'll call automation and templates and kind of streamlining the workflows, which I think is just incredible. I would love to hear, how are you thinking about AI and the role it might play in content and maybe the business more broadly over the next few years?
Yeah, we are. It's funny you said I was just working with the internal teams. We've got some work streams going when it comes to AI at the Wine Group. We are very obviously, just like everyone else, we're excited about the opportunities and the potential that it sort of means for us. And there's so many things, whether it is content or even on the supply side, like are we enabling some of the work around some of the product development and all those sorts of things. I think some of the interesting use cases we've seen is that not only does it help us when it comes to sort of building assets that might exist out in the space, but also innovation brands. Like as Jack mentioned earlier, like we're working off of almost nothing a lot of times with these brands, or simply an idea. And so how do we create something that people can react to, especially when we're thinking about the full 3-tier system, right? We have to talk to our distributor partners and ultimately the retailers who are selling our products. So as we come up with new ideas and we want to get things in front of them quickly, how can we give them something to react to? And so we've actually been able to use some tools to really create some things there, which is really valuable. And I think that for us, it's really the key is making sure that anything we do in this space is protective of our brands while also allowing us to really grow and just be more nimble. But yeah, to your point, it's like there's so much going on. And I think for us in particular, we're really focused on how do we do things faster and how do we ultimately sort of grow from what we have. And what's amazing is really, again, it goes back to the whole organization piece, like understanding that and addressing these needs across everyone. And so it's not just, these conversations aren't happening in a vacuum, right? The digital team isn't going off and talking about AI and everyone goes, that's cool. And that's really it. Like we really are bringing in the brand teams, finance, legal, everyone to say, how do we address these things in a meaningful way and actually use these in a way that makes sense for you instead of sort of chasing the shiny toy, which is a big part of our conversations, Dave, I think has been really like, what we're working on with you guys is really building out things that are immediately applicable to the business, that are really focused on addressing the needs of the full 3 tiers, and really focused on how do we grow in that sense. And I think that's just such a nice change of pace versus what we oftentimes see, which is like, this is a cool new thing and let's all just do it and we're all staring at each other at the end of the year like, why? So I think that's been a key part of this partnership.
So great to see how much we've gotten done. Thank you both. You're an incredible source of inspiration. I have a couple of fun wrap-up questions for you. The first of which is, and I know it's hard to pick only two, but which two people have inspired you the most in your professional careers?
First and foremost, my dad. He's someone that I go to for every question that I have about my career and business problems. So he's been a huge guiding light in that sense. And then the bev alc industry, especially beer, which is the category I was previously in, can be very dominated by men. And I've had some really amazing female bosses who and almost exclusively female bosses up until now, that have really been very inspiring, have taught me a lot personally and professionally. So just want to shout out Elise, Jenna, Arabella, and Carolyn.
Yeah, Jack, I'll echo your sentiment there. I think there's a boss I actually I worked with at Gallo. Her name was Amy Lund, and she's fantastic. And the reason I think about my time with her is that it goes back to the idea that like this is all changing and it's constantly changing. So let's not assume we know everything, and let's really dig into like what do we know and go after it and really learn with passion. And so I always appreciate that about her, is she really taught that. But yeah, I think it's really it was working with her. And then I also think a lot about it was a prior boss I had when I first started out in the corporate world. His name was Matt Brower. Guys, like I still keep in touch with him. He's a fantastic guy, and he and I have always talked about sort of like how are we just being realistic about everything, like what's actually needed versus trying to address things just for the sake of addressing things. So he was just a really great guy to grow up under, and it's always cool to see as we grow together, just continuing to work that together.
Some great mentors there, some great stories and sources of inspiration for you all. And my second question is, if you get time, when you get time outside of work and family, how do you like to spend your time? What are some of your favorite hobbies?
Yeah, I'll go first just because I have a 4-month-old. So I'm in the thick of parenting right now with that. But
you're busy.
There is no time.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. Fatherhood has been an adventure. I've got my 7-year-old and a 4-month-old, but it's funny. I feel like sometimes I can't say this because it feels like a cop out, but I genuinely have an interest in the category. Like I love learning more about wine and really understanding the whole space and both in and outside of the whole portfolio, and just like all the things that are changing. Like I always tell everyone, when I first got into wine, I was actually really into craft beer, and I was just like, it's close enough, right? And sure enough, now being in it, I see the nuances. But it's something that I enjoy, really getting to try all these new things and all the things that come with it, which is the food world and really just everything that comes along with that. So that's one of my favorite things to do is to partake in the category just as much as I work in it every day.
So I probably have a little more time than Andrew on my hands because I don't have a 4-month-old. Outside of work and family, I love to host and cook, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I was drawn to the alcohol category in the first place, right? The social aspect and component of all of that. And then I play soccer, and I'm a big Yankee fan, so I hope by the time this has published, they've completed their comeback.
That sounds like Jinx talk there. You got to be careful, Jack.
A big moment. I love it. The social and kind of hosting and all that's such a big part of this category, 100%. And listen, I can't thank you both enough for being amazing partners, amazing sources of inspiration, for pushing us to really see what we can do some great work together, build even better capabilities. So really excited to continue the journey with you. And thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. If our listeners want to reach you online, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always the tried and true LinkedIn, so please feel free to reach out. But yeah, I think that's probably the best place to find us these days. Though social media is, that's really where I'm spending most of my time these days. Gone are the days of Facebook, I suppose, in that sense.
Yeah. Also on LinkedIn, Jack Slattery 1. Pretty straightforward. So you can find me there.
Andrew and Jack, such a pleasure. Thank you again so much for the partnership and for taking the time to chat with me on Beyond the Shelf.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, Dave.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by ItsRapid. ItsRapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use ItsRapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit ItsRapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.